Why do so many supervision agencies still publicly stress the number of legal actions that they take, when in fact we all know that that actually means very little? And what alternative reporting methods are there, and how are they impacted by an agency's reputation management? My name is Alex Koster, and this is Supervision Strategy. So this post analyzes generic reporting methods for supervision agencies and how these interact with their reputation management. Now, I should stress that in this blog post I'll be combining quite a few ideas from myself and various scholars. So I would invite you to listen critically and let me know if you think what I'm saying here actually makes sense. The most obvious reasons why supervision agencies measure and report on their supervision activities is to keep track on to what extent they are achieving their strategic and tactical goals, and to conform to their stakeholders' expectations when it comes to accountability. So in light of these reasons, I think it makes sense to critically reflect on what is actually the best method to measure and report your supervision activities. There are basically, I would say, 5 options. You can report input. For instance, if you're a capital market regulator, you can report how many new prospectuses are covering products that appear in your capital market. Throughput, so how many prospectuses you have actually examined. Output, for instance, how many prospectus amendments you've acquired, how many prospectuses have been rejected, perhaps. There's compliance outcome, so what percentage of prospectuses in your market are compliant with regulations. And then there's societal outcome. So in this example, how much has investors' understanding of the products that are represented by these prospectuses actually improved? Now, reporting methods 4 and 5, the outcome measures, are probably the most closely linked to your strategic and tactical goals as a supervision agency. So from that perspective, I would say it seems obvious that those type of measures are superior to the other ones, both in terms of keeping track and in terms of accountability. In fact, the further to the left you go on this little figure here, the less relevant your measurements and reports become. After all, why would your stakeholders really be interested in how much work you've done? But if you look at how regulators and supervision agencies actually report in their everyday practice, I think you'll find that reporting methods 1, 2, and 3 are actually way more dominant than 4 and 5. Now, this is partially because measuring outcomes is generally harder to do. So, for instance, measuring compliance levels takes a considerable effort, whereas just counting how many fines you've imposed is a piece of cake. But is that it really? Is it just that we regulators are generally lazy or incompetent? It's possible. But a more fundamental explanation is that when agencies are reporting, they're not actually primarily focused on keeping track or on accountability. To a large extent, they report to manage their reputation. So let's take a closer look at reputation and reputation management. Right? So Carpenter observes that reputation management revolves around a number of competencies or capabilities that agencies aim to demonstrate. There's technical competency or expertise, procedural competency, following proper procedures, taking stakeholder interest into account. There's so-called moral competency, meaning you're making decisions that are acceptable to the norms that are dominant in your country or your region. And there's performative competency, meaning you're achieving outcomes that your stakeholders actually value. Now, obviously, if you demonstrate all these competencies, you're going to build quite a strong reputation. But in reality, you might not have all these competencies to the same extent. So Busiek and Lodge actually observe that regulators will act selectively and strategically in demonstrating these various competencies. So regulators will try to compensate for competencies where they are relatively weak by stressing the ones where they are strong. They will stress competencies which are hard to dispute, and they will show different faces to different stakeholders. Now, if you look at how regulators and supervision agencies report through this lens, I think it explains better why their reporting methods over time are not generally moving to the right as much as you might hope. So towards other professionals, it might be useful to demonstrate your technical capabilities, for instance by publishing sophisticated reports, especially if you don't have that many tangible outcomes to show. Towards regulated firms, even if they don't like the outcome of your work all that much, you may still gain more acceptance for your work if you demonstrate procedural competency. For instance, by telling them, reporting how you've taken their interests into account in your decisions. Now, towards the media, your reputation may depend on reporting enforcement measures that meet populist expectations, such as imposing fines on powerful corporations. In other words, demonstrating so-called moral competency. But supervision agencies do not generally have a stakeholder who is primarily interested in the outcomes for which your agency has been set up. In other words, who is demanding that you actually demonstrate your performative competencies, your outcomes, your societal outcomes? Perhaps the ministry that is responsible politically for your agency, but in reality, they may not always have the long-term perspective that is needed for such a focus. So, if agencies do not report enough actual outcomes of their work, it may not be only because this is hard to do. It may simply be that they don't have enough stakeholders that demand that they report on the basis of actual outcomes. But regardless of such a factual explanation, if you are a regulation or a supervision official and you're interested in actually achieving the results for which your agency stands, then I would say you ought to be measuring and reporting actual outcomes, even if no one is asking for them. So, do you think this analysis makes any sense? And what are your thoughts on reporting supervision activity and reputation management? Let us all know in the comment section or let me know at supervisionstrategy.com. Until next time, thank you for watching and thank you for working on supervision.